Hola, ¿cómo están todos? Bienvenidos a este nuevo inicio de semana. Vamos a tener un día súper interesante con Juhani Pallasma. Vamos a estar platicando con él sobre todo este tema de lo que hemos estado viviendo en estos últimos meses, su percepción sobre cómo han ido los cambios afectando a todo el mundo desde la perspectiva del COVID, cómo sus pensamientos y su filosofía han ido cambiando a través de los años y cuáles son sus pensamientos hacia dónde hacia dónde debería ir la humanidad en caminar hacia adelante. Creo que eso es una manera interesante de seguir con estas pláticas. Hemos estado platicando con muchos arquitectos latinoamericanos y mexicanos y tuvimos la oportunidad de conocer a Juhani en noviembre del 2016 cuando vino a la Universidad Marista, que Javier Muñoz, el Bonch, lo trajo para que nos compartiera su filosofía y su manera de pensar. Y pues a través de estos años hemos mantenido el contacto, toda la comunidad, para seguir viendo cómo se van desarrollando estos temas y a través de todos los invitados que hemos tenido, a todos les hemos estado haciendo preguntas de qué le deberíamos de preguntar a Juhani, sobre qué y hacia dónde deberíamos llevar esta conversación, ¿no? Román Cordero, Rafa Plasencia, Rafa Pardo, Felipe Asadi, Carlos Patrón, Javier Muñoz, todos me ayudaron y estuvieron apoyando para orientarme hacia dónde deberíamos de platicar. Y pues vamos a darle la bienvenida a Juhani, que ya está esperando aquí para entrar. Vamos a...
Hello.
Hello, Juhani. How are you?
Fine. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well.
Oh, perfect. It's very nice to see you again.
Good to see you. I just drove back to the city from our summer house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you're
in my office.
So welcome back to Mexico.
Thank you.
at least virtually.
Yes.
The last time I saw you here with Javier Muñoz at Universidad Marista was 2016, I believe.
Oh, I thought it was 3 years ago, but it's 4 years ago already.
4 years ago, yes.
Time passes so quickly.
So quickly. I remember that time that you told me was your, I don't know, something like your 100th turn around the world. And
100, now it's 108.
And so you've been busy.
Rounds. Sorry?
You've been busy.
I have been busy. I write 10 hours every day nowadays. Since I closed my office in 2011, I have been writing 10 hours every day.
Well, I actually, that was some of the things I wanted to ask you about your writing, but first I wanted to thank you for your time, because I know you have a very complicated schedule with everything that you do, and I really appreciate that you take the time to talk with us, because there is a lot of people interested in hearing your ideas and thoughts, especially in these times that we are living.
Well, I'm glad that you proud that you invited me.
No, I'm very humble that you. So the first thing I wanted to ask you, Juhani, is how are you? How these times are?
I was teaching this spring in Barcelona, a visiting studio, but on 13th of March, the university was closed, and I took a flight back to Helsinki the following day, one of the last flights that connected Barcelona with Helsinki. And I have then been teaching my studio and giving my lectures online. But that ended in the end of May. After that, I have just been working on my writings. I'm
Oh,
writing one essay at least every 2 weeks.
every 2 weeks.
Yes.
So, so in a way, you be always traveling around? So this time, this lockdown, has it helped you to focus your energy into writing? And so it's been like a respite of all the busy schedule that you have?
In a way, I wish that we would have a pandemic time always, because I like the slow time, and the fact that I'm not meeting so many people all the time. The time is strange in my experience during the pandemic. At the same time, time passes very quickly, and at the same time, time is very slow. I once said to my wife, I feel like I'm washing my teeth all the time, because between washing my teeth, brushing my teeth in the morning and in the evening, the day seems to have disappeared.
Yes. No, and you write a lot about time and how it affects us in different ways.
Yes,
Especially, I remember when you say that you're just saying, no, how it apparently every day we have less time. And I remember that you say, I wrote it. I have my notes around here, but you say in 1819, Abel Lamais,
yes,
the man does not read. There's no time for it. And that was
yes,
like almost a long time ago.
that's
And
right.
right now, it will appear that we are slowing down, but at the same time, with the internet and the world is so connected that you are in Helsinki at the same time, and at the next moment you're in Mexico. So the time gets compressed in a very weird way.
Yes, that's true. What has happened in the past 30 years or so is that time and space have become, how would I say, you could exchange time for space and vice versa. Nowadays, we, for instance, measure distances by time. Particularly, Americans say it's 2 hours from here instead of saying giving a measure. And this fusion of time and space as experiential dimensions is true, but also what is true is that time is becoming quicker and quicker. The French architect, philosopher, what's his name, who writes about speed. I will tell his name in a second. He has written that the most important product of contemporary societies is speed. And we are somehow completely disoriented by this increasing of speed and quickening of time. For instance, these pandemic months have given us plenty of time to think about our economic productive strategies. I have not heard a single political figure suggest an alternative to the mad consumerist race of ever increasing production, which of course is an absurdity. It is not possible. Anyone who thinks even a little knows that there is no possibility for perpetual growth. But
Sure.
no one has come up with a suggestion of an alternative economic system. That's what we really need. Humanity needs that. And in a way, if we didn't have the negative consequences of the pandemic, like bankruptcies of smaller and mid-sized firms, this is a much better situation for culture than the race, the mad race for time.
So in this way, when we were talking about when we are talking about the new destiny of mankind and where should we go from here, in a way, you were telling me that it reminds you it takes you to a flashback to the 1960s when there was this new economical growth post-war and this new view of the future. That do you believe that was caused by the post-war and maybe the impact that the landing on the moon had to create this, like, trying to get to an utopia?
Well, I am very concerned with the fact that mankind, at least in the industrial world, seem to have lost their interest in future, the human fate at large. In the early decades of last century, in 1920s, for instance, there were futuristic books, and early cinema dealt with the future. And then immediately after the war, in the late 40s, an interest started again in future. For instance, the science of futurism was established in a number of universities around the world. The Club of Rome, which is a collective of scientists, academics, industrial leaders, etc., began to study future. But then in the end of the 60s, only less than a decade later, it seems as if men lost their interest in future entirely.
So, and do you and at the same time, in those times, there was this movement, the Archigram in London, right? That it started to create these walk-in cities and the plug-in cities with Peter Cook and Ron Heron. Do you think that I started to see some revival of those things, and they're starting to say that it can be possible? Could it be that we were not ready in the 1960s because of technology or economics in a way, and now it went that into a deep sleep, and it may be awakening, and this pandemic is an opportunity to revisit that?
I hope so. I hope so, because politics, for instance, all around the world has become so short-sighted and pragmatic. And that is a consequence of the fact that most politicians, they have a 4-year perspective, because 4 years is usually the interval between elections.
Yes.
And in the commercial world, it is 1/4 of a year, because nowadays economic balance is calculated on quarters. In the fashion world, there are 8 seasons nowadays, which just points out that the pace is getting faster and faster. So yeah. Altogether, my feeling is, and my understanding is, that we are losing the perspective, both in time, in terms of the width of our view, and also the depth of time. We are increasingly living in a here and now world, True. Which is rather frightening.
Yes, yeah, and when we say in the 1960s as well, we were walking towards, or we were trying to walk towards this utopia.
Yes.
But it seems that in reality we are walking towards dystopias, that they are presenting different challenges, and different ways of viewing the world. Could it be that also a dystopia could send us in a right direction in a way that present us to with a challenge that we can fix? Like I don't know if I explain myself. Like
I understand what you are saying, and I agree with you. Until about 15 years ago, the futuristic films, for instance, they were mostly utopian. After that, they have been dystopian.
Every single science fiction is a dystopia nowadays.
Yes,
well, except Star Trek.
Those reveal a mental orientation that is very important to observe.
Sure. So just to do you have any talking about science fictions and those movies that presents dystopias? Do you have anyone in particular?
Any
movies that, for example, Blade Runner, for example, that presents
Blade Runner is a good example of a dystopian future, which confuses already that early humans and artificial humans.
Yes, and the management of the world by corporations.
Exactly. And this is becoming a real threat to humanity, is the advance of artificial intelligence. Those are ethical questions which have not been fully openly discussed in a cultural way. I think the question of whether to permit artificial intelligence to advance without limits, or genetic manipulation to advance without limits, those are deep ethical questions. But they are not discussed, and they are also the deepest political decisions, because they define what kind of future humanity will have.
Yes, and it's kind of scary when we see these videos of, for example, Boston Dynamics, the manufacturer of robots in the United States.
Yes.
When we see 10 years ago, the robot could barely walk, and now he's doing somersaults and jumping everywhere. And it's like, okay, now it seems more real.
Yes, and pretty soon they will reproduce themselves.
Yes, well, I believe some of them already do so.
Yes.
No, but
this is a real issue in the mind of the so-called industrial man. We believe so much in our mental capacities and capacities of invention that we are approaching limits where this curiosity and excitement about newness becomes a real threat to ourselves.
It will be nice if everything would. It would be nice if the world would go into direction like this sci-fi of Star Trek. Have you seen Star Trek?
Not many times. I don't think I have watched any single film entirely, but I know what you are talking about.
Yeah, a place with no money, but the goal is to learn more and to explore.
Yeah. There is an interesting thing also in this context, and that is the fusion of Buckminster Fuller's utopian technological views in the 1960s based on mathematics and physics, and then the movement. The largest hippie community in Colorado, for instance, they used Fuller's domes, or they built their own Fullerian domes. So it's an interesting moment where the sharpest scientific thought and the desire for an alternative social ethics coincided in the second part of 1960s. Nothing like that seems to happen today.
No, I think actually we are going to, like you say, we are, instead of going forward, we are starting to go backwards. We can see right now examples of this happening all over China, especially in Hong Kong, with everything they've been living.
Well, also in terms of leadership, until political leadership.
Sure.
And until the time of the Swedish prime minister who was murdered, and Václav Havel in Czechoslovakia, the president, and the president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, we had leaders who had an ethical radiation. We could trust them. Today, I trust only one single person. The only statesman in today's world is Angela Merkel.
And I agree with you, definitely.
Yes.
She should stay another term.
Pardon me?
She should stay another term.
Yes. Yes. Well, I'm just pointing out that this downhill slide is very clearly seen in the decline of leadership, lack of visions, and then the total moral corruption of which Donald Trump is the prime example.
Sure. I was watching an interview yesterday of Donald Trump with this journalist Wallace, and it's I think it was a shock to him because it's the first time they interview him and check him at the same time, and it caught him by surprise because he was telling, we are the best in the world. It's like, sir, you're not right. The numbers say this, and he said, no, your numbers are wrong. He's like, no, my numbers are right. And they were discussing at length by all the facts that the Trump just starts babbling and talking about nonsense, and this reporter was telling him with charts and facts that he was not correct. And I think it was the first time in his presidential career that he has a true interview. And I think it would be very different these 4 years if it would be in this daily, like a normal journalist.
Well, this has appeared like strange entertainment, Trump's behavior, but it is a serious matter because human interaction and collaboration has to be based on the concept of truth. If the concept of truth is lost, how do we communicate? How do we trust each other's proposals?
And how do you think we could build, because the technology and the control of the media and the control of all the informations make you in a way owner of the truth of what truth do you want to say? How can we control as a society what the truth is? Do you think internet and the social media can help with that, to counter the facts that one is telling the other?
In principle, they could, but at the same time, they are means of suppression, very powerful means of controlling every single individual. So I think we are getting into more and more trouble. The concept of personal freedom, for instance, not even to speak of the freedom to express one's opinion, but just to exist freely. That is becoming more and more questionable, simply because we are surveyed all the time. you it was just recently when the Chinese company was how would I say, rejected in was it in Canada or Britain just a few days ago, because there is suspicion that their system is a system of spying.
Oh, you mean TikTok, the social app?
No, the entire network.
Oh, the Huawei.
Yes, exactly. Huawei.
Yes, they block it in British in England.
So that just exemplifies one more problem, and that is, how can contemporary societies guarantee human freedom, for instance, in terms of being permitted to live the way each one of us wishes to live. We can't anyway, because already advertising conditions violently our desires. I have myself developed a complete immunity to advertising. In the newspapers and journals that I read, if I'm asked after I have read the newspaper, were there any advertisements, I couldn't tell because I have not seen them.
Yeah, you have a filter integrated.
Yes.
You should teach us how to do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm always happy with my phone until there is a new one, and then I need the new one.
I have only an old people's phone.
No.
I don't want to have a more complicated instrument, not because I'm afraid that I would not learn how to use it. I just don't want to be available on full front. I want to be in the end of a narrow channel, which I can control myself.
Yes, because this leaves you at the mercy of everybody.
Exactly.
And I was reading the other day that we always think that technology push us forward and makes everything easier, but that maybe in reality what it's doing is making things more complicated, as we are explaining, as you were talking before, with the compression of time is because of the technology. Like when you say the Romans were not worried about what hour it was, only if it was noon, afternoon, or night. And since we started to missing the train, then we have to start checking the minutes to see if we are late. So it changed the conception of time, and that's because of technology.
Yes. And now time is measured in the sciences with millions of a second, or even shorter.
Yes, I've been in the last couple of weeks, I've been having a lot of I realized in this slowing down that we locked down into our homes, and in 5 or 6 months ago, I will have 6 meetings, or no, I will have 3 or 4 meetings every day.
Yeah.
And now, the other day, I realized with my business partner Jorge, that we will have 10 meetings in a day, and they want one next to the other one. It's not possible. We are not just going to get tired. We are just going to get sick because of the virus, but we are going to get sick mentally because there is a lot of diseases that we are not taking into account.
Yes. That is why I do not want to have a modern telephone, because I want to maintain both privacy and a kind of slowness in my life. And you understand what I'm saying?
No, I think it's kind of nice. All my communications with you through the years had been through email.
Yes.
Almost, and for me at least, it feels almost like I sent a letter, and I have no idea when you're gonna get it and when you're going to answer. And I was the other seeing the recollection of the emails that we've been writing over the years, and that's not possible anymore with the cell phone. That it's everything so. I think it loses some value. It lost
Yeah.
it lost some the documentary part of it and the nostalgia of it. It's kind of nice. It's
Yeah. You may remember that I formulate my my emails as if they were letters. I have the
oh yeah, and
the address and everything.
the location.
Yes, they are letters. In fact, they are fast letters. I would prefer slow letters because when you receive a letter that has been 3 weeks on its way across the Atlantic, for instance, it gives you time to respond, think and respond. But when you get an email, you have an obligation to respond within the same day.
No, that's true. And I believe the first email that I sent you was a very casual one, like, "Hey, Juhani, nice to see you in Mexico. I hope we can keep in touch." And then when you answer me like a formal letter,
Yeah.
I say, okay, this is different. I remember that I had to enter internet and see how to write a letter. You know, it's like first that casual. Oh, okay, and but
Yes, I am very interested. I have been very interested in correspondence. I have donated my all my drawings and models of the office to the Architecture Museum. I have donated my 10,000 books to the Architecture Museum, and I donated my 100,000 letters to the National Archive. 100,000. The number doesn't tell much, but when I say that Sir Bernard Shaw, the British writer, was known for his extensive correspondence. When he died, he had 28,000 letters. I gave to the National Archive 100,000 letters. I am now finalizing a book, a conversation, or sorry, a correspondence between the ex-mayor of Helsinki and myself on art and architecture. Just as I say this just to underline the point that there is something very nice about correspondence, exchanging letters and ideas by letters.
And well, let me try to formulate this in English. I understand everything that you say, and I believe it's very valuable. And I try all the time to document everything that is happening in the office, the drawings, the sketches. But at the same time, when I see around what I do every day and what all the people and architects around me are doing, I feel that we're losing that connection with documenting our work, our life, and our conversations. And we may be very connected one with another through the telephone and with the internet, but at the same time we are disconnecting from future generations because we are not going to we are leaving a lot of information, but we are just leaving the surface. We are not leaving the process in many instances. I think it's something that worries me.
Well, nowadays we primarily exchange information, whereas in the days of letter writing, the golden age of letter writing was late 19th century and early 20th century. I'm thinking of Anton Chekhov, the Russian writer and playwright, and then a younger person, the Austrian-born poet Rilke. Their letters are so fantastic because they are not engaged with information. They are engaged with philosophic and poetic thinking about life. But the current electronic media does not encourage us for poetic or philosophical thought. They encourage us for quick information exchange. That's one reason why I prefer old-time correspondence.
In a way, in your writings, it's almost like the same it's happening in architecture, that we are more concerned with the information, with the form, with the rationality of it, and we forget the emotional, the psychological, and the atmospheres of the projects at the moment that we design. So it could be like a parallelism in those matters.
Yes, yes, yes. When this criticism also concerns somewhat rationalization. When I started to write, I tried to write as rationally and clearly as I could. But then I learned after a few years that things are not that clear. You have to falsify reality in order to say it precisely and clearly. And I started to use a more literary and poetic language. And I have realized that only after that my writings were interesting to other people to read, because they were not just giving, facts, trying to give facts. They were trying to make human exchange situation. It is the situationality which is being lost in today's world of facts.
I agree with what you say, and in fact, one of the first questions I wanted to ask you was about language, because when I was preparing for talking with you, and I started to read this book, this Touching the
That's
World.
one of the newest ones.
The newest one. It actually was sent to me by a. It was sent to me
by the University in Barcelona.
Yes, I was reading about that, and I was it was sent to me by a friend, Rafa Plasencia from Guadalajara, from a little library at Electa. He was very excited, and he told me, "Oh, I have to send you this book that is I just got it," and he sent it to me, and I started reading it, and it's touching the world, but in Spanish it's tocando al mundo, and I suppose that and when I started reading it, at the same time, I was listening to some of your interviews and lectures online, and I realized that I was reading in Spanish and I was listening to you in English.
Yes.
So, and obviously the idea, the text is the same, but in a different language, and almost like, and it started to feel to me like a material, like Spanish is a different material, English is a different material, and they don't necessarily convey the same emotions and one to another. And I wanted to ask you, when you write, do you write in any particular language because you feel that it enforces the idea that you want to say, or not?
In principle, I can write in my mother tongue, Finnish, and English. I understand Swedish and German and somewhat French, but I would not write in any other languages than Finnish and English. But I must say sincerely that I prefer to write in English for several reasons. One is that the books that I have read are mostly in English language, so my thinking about the things I write about has happened in English. And besides, I can imagine an English reader, but I can't imagine a Finnish reader.
Oh.
Which is a bit strange.
Like, and like no like you can imagine that everybody can read that you have more. Do you mean that you can imagine that somebody that speaks English wants to read about you, right?
I just have a feeling that in the English-speaking world, there are a number of individuals who would be interested in this thing.
Like nobody's a prophet on their land.
Pardon me?
Like the phrase that says nobody is a prophet on their land.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas in Finland, Finns are known to be very silent people. I am now approaching the age of 84, but practically never has anyone commented my writings in Finnish. But I get letters every week from around the world for my English writings.
I'm going to learn Finnish, and I'm going to send you a letter in Finnish. So.
Well, don't enter that task, because Finnish language is one of the most difficult languages in the world. We have 16 cases, for instance.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to use Google Translate, so I hope it's not going to be that hard.
Yes.
No, but I was it really shocked me your answer that you rather write in English. And do you think it's all, besides the reason that you tell me, do you think it's because it's more direct, like you can transmit an idea more directly through English than through Finnish?
Yes, as I said, for instance, there is not a strong tradition of phenomenological thinking in Finland, at least to my knowledge. And as I write in the phenomenological mode, I feel that I have a stronger connection with the audience when I use the English language.
Okay. And when we are talking, like right now that we are talking via Zoom and we are connected to YouTube, when there is a lot of people watching us having this conversation, right now you're in your office, right?
Yes, I am.
It's well, this is my home. You
Yes.
have a lot of philosophy and poets and architecture. I have a lot of comic books in the back.
Yeah.
But is this when you write about home, it seems that it's a very intimate place, a place of intimacy, very personal. And also this pandemic has made us brought the world into our homes through video conference, opening a camera to see what's in my home. Now, if I sometimes by mistake I turn it around and it shows my kitchen and my dogs and everything. And it seems to me that it made sense to me when you say you were going to your office to have this, because it was hard to me to conceive this intimacy that you write and you would open it to everybody. Do I explain myself?
Yes. Well, my intention was to have our conversation in our summer house by a lake, but then
nice.
The connections there are not so good. So I drove to the city just to make sure that the technical aspect of our conversation works.
Oh, I appreciate it. But do you feel that this openness, like connecting virtually to our homes and allowing everybody to see it, does it change any way that you think about home before this pandemic? Or what it used to be home, and you were there certain times a year or certain hours a day, and now that we are in lockdown, that we are living 24 hours inside our homes for months at a time, has it changed that perception?
Yes. Home, the concept or experience of home is partly something that we carry along. Home is a mental, psychological concept rather than a physical concept. Whenever I travel, and I used to travel very much, and I came to a hotel, I spread some books or something on the bed and tables, somehow to mark this is my territory for myself, to somehow plant the concept, psychological concept of home in a strange place. The concept of home is a very complex psychological thing. There is a philosophical, or there was a philosophical writer. Something's happening to my memory. I will remember it in a while. Who used the notion of omega in his writings. He's said that from that omega, the world seems right or looks right and whole. For me, this notion of omega applies to home. Home is a place from where the world appears right and whole. And so what I'm meaning here is that it's only partly physical, mostly it is mental. And perhaps our most important home is the collection of memories that we have. We dwell in our mind, in our memories.
And so when you say that home is something that we carry here, and especially you that been traveling around the globe for many years, in lectures, in stays that you sometimes stays month at a time. I believe that this one in particular you wrote it in Australia.
Yes, I stayed I was invited to Australia to live in the center of Sydney for 4 months, and I wrote these lectures there.
So in a way, that place became your home for 3 months.
That's right. That's right.
And when you were in Merida in Yucatan, it was your home for 1 week.
Yes. Yes.
So what I want to ask around this is the concept of identity. Octavio Paz says that identity is the balance between regionalism, yes, being too local, and yes, cosmopolitanism.
Yes.
I'm sorry, my English is not that good, but I'm being too local and being too much from the world. In how do you define yourself? How do you define your identity as a person, as an architect, and being that you have been a citizen of the world? Where do you find your identity?
Well, I lived the war years from 1939 until 1945 at my farmer grandfather's tiny farm in central Finland. And it was in a small valley, and there were hills around, and then forests and forests. And I still remember vividly how I felt that there is a world out there behind the forest, but I didn't know what it looks like. It was a miracle. It was an enigma for me. Now, at the age of 84, after having made 108 rounds around the world, I know the world but it's a rather interesting personal recollection to think about that, making the world real for a child to whom it was just a kind of a fairy tale or a word. And this, but I still always feel when I come back from a trip to the other side of the world, when I come back home, I reconstruct my own identity. It already in the taxi from the airport to the southern part of Helsinki, I feel that I reconstruct my identity when I see familiar things in the city.
So every time, in a way, every time that we travel, every time that we go, every time that you go around, when you go back, you rethink and rebuild yourself around everything that you have learned.
Yes, that's right.
So another thing that I wanted to talk with you about, this sense of about these travels that you've been doing all over the world. It's been 4 years since you've been to Yucatan.
Yes.
And I remember walking with you through Uxmal. I don't know if you remember these ruins. Yes. And I also remember that you told us that you say in the lecture that it's important to read everything, not only architecture, but poetry, literature, philosophy, and when time passes and you forget or you start to forget what you read, is when it starts to give a very meaningful impression in your lives. So how do you remember Uxmal from 4 years ago? What the impact or the feeling that it caused on you?
Well, of course, I knew Uxmal before we went there.
Sure.
It has been part of my education as an architect, somewhat, but because of my personal interest in Mexico, one of my favorite countries. So visiting Uxmal was really concretizing an image that I already had. And this is an interesting thing always for me when I go to a foreign country and I go to an art museum, for instance. I see a great piece of art, which I usually know in advance, but seeing it, it becomes part of me. And I have certain artworks around the world, which I always go to see if I'm around. For instance, Giorgione's Tempiesta in Venice. When I'm facing that little painting, the whole world is silenced. It's just the painting and myself. And somehow I feel physically how I can draw energy from that beautiful mystical painting. So architectural and artistic experiences are a nourishment in the same way almost as food is. I nourish my soul by looking at artworks. And I may have mentioned to you that until a certain age, when I had studied maybe 3 years architecture, I had divided my books into two categories, architecture books and other books. But then I realized that the category of other books is much more important for architecture, because novels and science and poetry and all those books, they deal with human life and dwelling and culture in a way that architecture too easily formalizes. So I have stopped recommending architecture books to my students. I always recommend them other books.
And yours?
Sorry, I don't recommend my own book.
No.
I have
joking.
just finished a book. I have it next to me. A book of my 9 lectures at the School of Architecture and Design in Fayetteville, Arkansas. All the lectures deal with Rainer Maria Rilke, the poet. And I added in the end 50 books, 50 books of literature and poetry, 50 books on science and philosophy, 50 films that I recommend to the students to read. I feel so strongly that reading and watching artworks is the real way of learning, that I try to lure my students to read always when I can do
it. When you came to Yucatan, one of the things that I took the most was the fact that you could learn more from, and I think it's similar to what you say when you say you don't recommend architectural books, you recommend all the other kinds of books. I have found that you can learn more from architecture, from the author, of how he thinks, what does he see, where does he go, how does he express himself of a place. Like, for example, it's very interesting to hear what you think of Uxmal, what does Alberto Campo Baeza thinks of Uxmal, what Peter Zumthor thinks of Uxmal, and it says a lot more of their work than the work itself, you know, that
yes,
you learn more from talking with the people than from seeing the works they done.
Yes, yes, and in my view, university education should not be engaged in distributing information. Information should be something which is identified, we identify individually. Academic education should be a inspiration to combine and unite and fuse the things you have already known in a new way. The task of university education is to educate wisdom, not distribute information.
Okay. This when we talk about education, also this pandemic has shown us that it can be taught in a different way. It has show us the advantages of Zoom. That right now I'm talking with you, and I'm in Mexico, you're in Helsinki. And at the same time in YouTube, we have people that I see the messages there from all over Latin America, Mexico, Merida, Panama, Colombia, Argentina, Chile, Peru. And I think this is something that it's very interesting, because the access that internet has given us I found it amazing that we can be, you can be there at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. and I here at 11 a.m. in the morning, and people from all over Latin America are listening and are learning from this. Education, do you think this pandemic is going to help bring the education in this way, like give it like a push forward, or is still going to be for a long time inside institutions with very little openness to the world?
I know what you are saying, but I'm a bit critical of this digital contacts for the reason that it has been a psychological knowledge from the 1960s that onwards that in human communication, 80% of communication takes place unconsciously in an embodied manner. Words constitute only roughly 20% of communication. And in an online connection as ours, it is the 80% which is lost.
Sure.
I have often said that I learned as a student of architecture in Helsinki, I learned more from my professors watching them walk in the corridors than listening to their lectures. And by this, I'm not at all criticizing the intellectual capacities. I'm just saying that the physical presence, the way individuals occupy this world, how their sense of being is such a strong experience. And it is the real, how would I say, zone of learning. For instance, you don't learn ethics by reading books on ethics. You learn ethical behavior by being next to ethically strong persons. Ethics is something that deals with our sense of being rather than being a learned academic behavior. So I understand what you are saying, and it is a miracle, of course, that we are communicating here, but it is a potential problem also. There is a fairly recent study of young children who have used iPads and these instruments from early on in their youth. These children cannot recognize human faces, and they cannot read emotions on human faces. So we should be, at the same time that we are excited about the potential, we should be concerned what is perhaps being missed.
Yeah, and when you say this, that when we put all our attentions in an iPad from an early age, it reminds me to the way that you say that we look at time, that how different even a small change that from reading a analog clock watch to a digital one, it changes the whole perception of it.
Yes, yes.
It amazes me the opportunities to connect with people, and probably it's harder for us to see, or for me to see the downsides, to the problems. So that's why I believe it's important to have all these people that says the views on technology, the views on education, and to try to find a way to find a balance between them, to be able to teach it the way it's supposed to be taught, but at the same time be able to reach as many people as possible. Because yes, please.
Well, I agree with you, but I want to add that the reason why our conversation right here now seems satisfactory, at least to me, depends on the fact that we have met. We know each other already. We already have the embodied understanding of who you are. And while if this was the first time we met, the communication would be much weaker. You see my point?
Yes, but at the same time, I have read studies that say that it's regarding advertising and things like that, you know. But when people see somebody online, and like a teacher, for example, it's or a product or something, it's more easier for them to buy it if they have seen it repeatedly, like in lectures or in advertising, because they feel and they think that they know him.
Yeah. That
Like
same
for people,
that same applies to works of art. When you have once seen a certain, say,
for example, Uxmal.
Claude Monet painting, then you can look at it in books, and because you are already familiar with its size and its ambience, you can get quite a lot of recollections through the printed image. And then when you have seen one Claude Monet, you can also much better appreciate an image of one painting which you have not physically seen. So the physical personal contact is very important, because it somehow places the artist or the work in your own existential space.
So when no, I understand, and I agree with you with the importance of this fact. When we one of the things that I to shock me the most when starting to read some of your writings a few years ago was the fact that I think young architects and that are doing architecture are so concerned with perfection, and they are so concerned that everything has to be perfect in the in the work. Everything has to be completely in line with another, and the picture have to be perfect for Instagram and for magazine or wherever. And when I start reading about atmospheres and how we in real life we only focus our attention in 1% of the whole spectrum, it really changed the way to see the design and see the works and the places that we create every day. And can you talk us a little bit about that to all the people that is listening to us?
Well, I would say more generally that the Western industrialized people, we are becoming more and more visual beings, and we are becoming more and more people of focused vision. We are losing the multi-sensory nature of reality, and we are also losing the unfocused peripheral perceptions, which are essential in, for instance, experiencing atmosphere or ambience. So I try to advise my students not to focus too much, rather have a wide view of things, and see things with vagueness, but interconnected rather than in focus. Usually also when you see a thing in focus, its interconnections with other things are lost.
So, and Juhani, when we were talking, we've been talking almost an hour about a lot of different subjects, especially around the times that we're living right now. This pandemic that has bring us into a lockdown and has at the same time slow us down and accelerate us in different ways. where do you think we should go from this point in regards of, when I see a lot of people talking about the future, I see that they are talking from a position of fear, a fear of these social distances. I see the signs all over the world that they are like these bubbles that protect us, and I feel that they are designing basing in fear. What do you think about this posture of designing the future based on the fears that we have?
Well, fear fundamentally arises from uncertainty. And it is clear that the Western culture is developing, or perhaps the entire human culture is developing towards increasing uncertainty. And in order to balance the fear, or keep the fear away or under control, we need to strengthen our consciousness. And again, I come back to the issue of reading a lot, and not limiting your reading. For instance, reading science and poetry at the same time. Fundamentally, they express the same things. All writings fundamentally express, this is how it feels to be a human being in this world. And that is something that teaches every one of us. And well, your question about fear is a very fundamental one. I must say, perhaps in all honesty myself, that I turn my eyes away somewhat from things that would awake fear. When you look at beautiful works of art, even in books, or you read Rilke's poetry, for instance, the fear goes away, because they are all images of a world that is a whole world. The fear, the experience of fear, I think it is fundamentally a fear of losing control and losing the understanding what one is experiencing and seeing. That can be counterbalanced by widening your sensibilities and widening your understanding of the human world. Not only the human world, I have become more and more certain that biology would be a subject matter that every architect should study. We should understand our evolutionary and biological historicity. I often say to my students, we are all millions of years old. The laws of time, for instance, that we started out with, completely forgets that we are animals.
Yes.
And the fact is, we are animals who have tamed themselves. We have tamed dogs, but we have also tamed ourselves. And our deepest mental problems are a result of this self-taming process.
We think that we tame ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
Because in actuality, emotions drive us, and we think we are rational beings when we are emotional.
That's right.
And
we have tamed only, or tamed ourselves only on the surface level of social behavior. We have had no control of our mental and unconscious world. It's
True.
untamed. That was the point that Freud made.
So when I talk about fear, and I don't know if it is this a narrow view of how we do things, but Um, can it be said that fear has driven, in a way, architecture? For example, the fear of being outside in the elements brought us to a cave. The fear of not controlling the weather to create a roof, or for example, after the post-war, when all the constructions were like after that were like more solid with concrete, almost like bunker like, and after the 1918 pandemic with these schools that were designed without roof to and everything white, to open spaces and ventilations. Do you think that maybe the first step, like as an animal, is fear, and from there we have to go and and go through it and fight through the fear to make something out of it?
Fear is a survival instinct, surely, in nature. But there is another principle, and that is the principle of not enjoyment, but satisfaction. Even the most simple worms have this, they seek certain experiences of satisfaction. So we are suspended between two polarities, fear and the seeking for satisfaction. I would object to the idea, which you somewhat suggested, that architecture would originate in fear or the need to protect oneself. I don't think so. Architecture originates in the mental world. The earliest human constructions are not shelters, they are graves. So early humans built structures for their dead relatives before they started to protect themselves by structures. And this is something we are forgetting, that architecture originates in the mental world, not in the world of practicality.
Interesting. I never thought of it that way. From where to where do we go from this point? Where do you think young architects that are living through these times and are going to shape the architectural and the minds for the future, where do you think they should go from here? What is the message that we should take from this pandemic that we are living, from these times that we are living? Because we want, everybody that I talk about, they want to go back. It's like we want to go back to normal, and as we don't understand that normal was not working, and normal was what created the situation that we are right now, what steps can we take from here to make certain that this doesn't happen again, or that we are prepared for it?
Well, I would definitely say, don't go back to the normal, what you consider normal. Not in terms of large-scale economies and production, but also in terms of the architectural profession. In most countries, architectural profession is going down very quickly. It has lost its autonomy and respect, and it has become a service profession like lawyers. The first thing architects need to do is to fight back, to deserve back their position as cultural people who have a certain autonomy. Simply, architecture does not, great architecture does not arise from prescribed programs or a search for economic success or or even practicality. One of the most touching spaces of modern time is Louis Kahn's empty space, sublime empty space at the Salk Institute in La Jolla. It was not in the program. Such a space could never be programmed by anyone outside the process. It can only come about by the process of creative work. And we all know that also Luis Barragan had an important role in leaving the space empty. Yes. So one of the greatest spaces in modern architecture could not be preconceived. It can only be conceived through the entire process.
And this this subject that you were talking about right now, that when Kahn asked Barragan to, what should I put in here? Yes. What should I do in this space? It talks to me about something that needs to happen more often, that it's collaboration, co-creation of things, because we are used to see the architect as a solitary being that creates things around it. And I believe that in these times, and especially with that example that you just gave us of co-creation, and having the humility to ask for help and ask for others' opinion and to work together towards a goal.
Well, simply, in my view, nobody works alone. Not even the greatest artist works alone. We all collaborate, and primarily we collaborate with the traditions of our own craft. And only when we are able to do work which continues that tradition, we succeed. Only the buildings or artworks that are accepted by the timeless tradition into the continuum of history of architecture, only they are great. All the others will be forgotten. So I emphasize strongly the importance of concretizing tradition for yourself and somehow placing yourself in that tradition. It concretizes one's work very much if you know your position. This position, of course, needs to be realistically judged, but I think it's the beginning of an artist's wisdom is to see where you stand in relation to tradition and your peers and friends. So what you are saying, it is very important to rely on your friends and make friends even with people whom you never have met or whom you never could have met because they died 400 years ago maybe. And so then you are in the right company to judge the quality or lack of quality.
You usually say that, not that architecture and art sometimes is not, you want the confirmation and you want the acceptance of your ancestors,
exactly.
Who came before.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So, and I believe that's something that's very beautiful to architecture, and I think it goes with what you're saying, is that when you see a work of architecture when you see a work of art and somebody says who painted or who sculpted it, the artist says, oh, I did it, or they say that artist did it. But in architecture, what I find interesting is that when you ask the owner who did it, he's going to say that he did. The architect is going to say that he did. The craftsman, the labor is going to say, oh, I did it. The electrician is going to say the same, you know. So I think in a way it's very beautiful that architecture, it's by the simple fact of existence, it brings together a lot of people, and they all in their own way created. And I think that's something very
Yes.
nice.
Well, I have sometimes in my writings used the notion, the dance of construction.
The dance of
The
construction.
dance of construction, because it's a kind of a slow motion dance, particularly when you think of the traditional ways of building in the farming community. Buildings were built together. The families of the village came together to do the building, and in order to emphasize their collectivity and to tune everybody in the same rhythm, they used to sing. Singing was very common in collective work, and that is why I speak of the dance of construction, because it's a kind of a interesting choreography how a building goes up.
And it brings the community together.
Yes.
In Yucatan in particular, there is a La Valle Peniche, that it's some friends that I study with. They are great architects. They, with other people, they made a very big investigation around these projects that are all around Yucatan. There are los ruedos. It's like where they were get together to see bullfighting and things like that, but they don't do anymore the bullfighting thing. But these structures, they will build them in like this coliseum, these amphitheaters. They will build them in 3 days, and they will have 1, 2, or 3 floors of height. And what is very interesting is that there is no layouts, there is no blueprints, there is nothing. This is just the memory translated from one generation to the other. And in order to build everything that is this circle, the structure to support one family booth, it's needed to support the next one and the next one. So if somebody fails, everybody fails. So they have to build it together, and they have all to agree in order for it to work. And it helps, brings the communities together time and time, year after year, even all the difference that they could have.
Well, we live in very individualistic cultures. We believe in the capacity of the individual. This was not the case before, as you said. The magnificent medieval cathedrals, for instance, they are results of collective work.
Generations.
Of generations, yes. As you probably know, I have been studying animal architecture quite seriously. Just a second.
No, don't worry about it.
Wait a minute. There was my wife. I have been studying animal architecture quite seriously. And as Edward O. Wilson, the American biologist, who is the spokesman of biophilia, the ethics and science of life. He's a world's best myrmecologist, and he argues, for instance, that the nest of a leafcutter ants is more complex in its performance than any invention, any human invention. Where does that come from? It comes from group intelligence, intelligence that is not in anybody's mind or head. Yes. It comes from a coordinated group behavior. So maybe we could also study what happens, what could happen if we had less confidence in individual intelligence and more confidence in collective intelligence.
That's true. And everybody that knows me here in Merida, they say I'm crazy all the time. But every year, when there is the nuptial flight of the ants,
Yes.
I go outside and I collect queens.
Yes.
And I've been looking for years, and I'm seriously talking about 5 or 6 years, trying to find the nuptial flight of the leaf-cutter ant to build a nest around it. I've had over the years 5 or 6 ant nests in my home that I put them in a place and they grow, and I can see through glass how they build their communities and how they use trash to generate ventilation systems inside and everything. And my Everest is to find the ant color and the leaf color ant. And it's extremely hard, but it's amazing how they build this, and how they are actually farmers, and how
their constructions are huge. The largest known ant nest extends from Spain to Latvia. It's almost as large as the Roman Empire.
Yes, they're the biggest empire in the world. No, it definitely, we have a lot to learn from. We have to be humble and look down and learn from everything that everything that's around us. So Juhani, and I'm really grateful for your time. I don't want to take more of your time. I know it's late there. I think it's what is there, 8 in the
7:30.
7:30. But I don't want to take much of your time. I just wanted to if you can give me 10 more minutes, I want to invite someone who wants to say hi to you.
Please.
I'm going to send a link to him. Okay. So I asked Jorge, my business partner, to send him the link, but I think he didn't. So I'm going to send him myself. So it's just going to take me a minute.
All right.
Okay, I already sent him the link. He's going to enter shortly. So in the meantime, I wanted to thank you for your time to take a 1.5 hour from your 10 hours of writing a day. So I can imagine. I need to start. I think we all need to start practicing and write more often. I think we are afraid of it. I'm very afraid of writing, and I think it's going to help me what you say. Instead of writing rationally, trying to express every single thing, goes for going the other way around.
Well, writing, for me, writing is the same kind of process as sketching, that there is no straight way. One has to go back and forth and restart and abandon wrong starts. I write every piece of mine in average 10 times from beginning to end.
So it's like layer upon layer upon layer.
Yes, and it's the process that brings the ideas. They do not originate in my mind. They originate in the process.
And in a way, is it like in a way, it's the same as like you say, sketching and architecture. It's everybody sees an architect giving an exposition or a lecture, and they believe that everything that he does is wonderful, and they don't see the process behind it, that it's hours and hours of failings and going back and forth. And okay, he's entering right now. The process of writing, like you say, it's you describe it often as walking through a forest.
Yes.
And I love that analogy in the way that because you say that you write about the same themes for years at a time.
Sorry?
And that you write about the same themes, the same subjects for years at the time.
In a way, I have a feeling that I'm writing the same essay all the time, writing and rewriting the same essay. The forest becomes wider and wider as I write a new theme. But writing for me is entering something unknown. I'm not writing on things that I know. I'm writing on things that I do not know before starting to write.
But when you, in a way, that's where sometimes when we, but with architecture, you have to stop eventually and you have to build it. With writing, you can keep going and keep going and keep going. But in a way, the process of architecture doesn't necessarily stop with what project, but it becomes the beginning of the next one, like the learnings from the first one. So in a way, it could be the same process.
Yes. As it happened, I wrote today a piece for a journal, which was, the title was given to me, How to Begin.
How to begin?
Yes, begin. They asked a number of architects around the world to tell how they begin. I wrote my piece about how I begin, and particularly the difference between beginning to sketch and beginning to write. Beginning to sketch a project is easier because the project is always placed. There is a concreteness about it, whereas
you have a goal.
Yes, you know how to enter the forest, whereas in writing you have to somehow have more certainty before you enter the forest.
Mm. But in a way, when you do an architectural project, when you conclude and you build something, but I'm not sure if I'm mistaken, but you usually don't give conclusions in your writings. Is that on purpose?
That's on purpose. Yes, definitely. That's because it's a continuous story. The next one continues where I left the previous time. Yes.
Years ago, many years ago, when I was younger, I met one of my. I used to study karate, and they brought this teacher from Japan, and he said that after doing the basic hit for 40 years, he finally did it one time perfect. So he says that all his life was like a perfection and going back and traveling and to get to one perfect hit.
Well, that's the same thing in writing. The ideas of writing are not in your brain as verbal formulations. They are there as emotions and feelings. And every writing is an approximation of the feeling. You understand my point?
Yes, but it's in a way I think people, well, in a way I think that people are used to reading and and they're expecting conclusions, because I think we're kind of lazy. We don't want to. We want that somebody gives us the answers, because when I started to ask around, what should I ask Juhani when I have this opportunity to talk with him, a lot of people ask him to give us conclusions, ask us to give us like points. He always talks about, oh, mankind should find a way. Yes, but what is the way? And it's like, and I felt that it's like when and it reminded me when I read Gabriel Garcia Marquez with the magic realism, that
Yes.
just gives you ideas. He doesn't give you everything true. It's just like a way of thinking, and from there you have to go on.
Yes, I'm not even thinking of giving ideas. I'm taking my readers to see something, and then it's up to them what they see or whether they see. I'm not pretentious enough to tell exactly what they should see or what they are going to see. It's just to point out the right location. When I'm often introduced before a lecture as a theoretician, I always object to it. I'm not theorizing anything. I'm reporting on what I have experienced and what I see.
And this point of view that you say now, I find it interesting in the way that a lot of architects, when they reach certain position and they became famous, they start to do the opposite of what you say. They start to see what architect should be like.
Mm.
and I feel that it creates a lot of, I don't know if the word is what's the, not motivation, the other way around.
Yes.
How do you say it? It's
Discouragement.
yeah, I think so, because when I started to go, when they started me to invite me to show my projects at conference, I started to ask the students, what do they feel and how do they feel after the end of the conversation and the lectures. And a lot of people felt, instead of feeling uplifted, they feel like downsized. They feel, oh, I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to be able to do something like that. And and I and I believe that they don't do it on purpose. It's just the way that we are used to show our work. That we just show the final phase, we just show the picture. We don't show everything around it and the process and the failings. And I think sometimes people forget that we are in a position where we can create things, but not everybody's in the same position, and we have to be careful to what we say, because we may, not on purpose, may them lose the way because they feel that they're never going to make it.
Yes, and I think work in all the creative fields is primarily a way of discovering yourself. What you are studying is yourself, your sense of being, your existential sense. At least in my view.
No, I agree. Well, this I wanted to Javier El Bonch to enter to say hi to you, but he had an issue and he's not able to connect. But when I told the Bonch that I was going to talk with you, he was extremely excited to hear from you, to see you again. He remembers very fondly the time that you were here, and that when he saw Venice a few years ago.
I and my wife Hannele, we remember our visit in southern Mexico very, very well. And please give my regards to my friends.
I will. I will say hi. I'm gonna say hi to all of them. They're extremely happy to see that you're well, that you're in your 108th turn around the world. We hope that the next one takes you to Yucatan, takes you to Yucatan again. And Rosa, my wife Rox, that also remembers you very fondly, and your wife,
Yes.
she says hi to you.
Thank you.
She is very shy. She doesn't want to come here, but she's been listening every single word.
Okay. Thank you for the conversation.
No, I appreciate it. I don't know if you have any like goodbye words to everybody that is listening to you. I'm reading some of the comments in internet. They're like they're very happy to see you. So
yeah. I'm happy to have reconnected with my Mexican friends.
And, it was very with all your Latin American friends, because we are from.
Okay, yes. I have friends in a number of Latin American countries. I have given lectures and taught in a number of countries.
Oh, I remember. I don't know if you remember. It was very important to you. But I show you. But the last day you were here, I show you this book.
Yes, I remember.
That is the Sandman, and that it talks about and it talks about the dreams. It talks about the creation of dreams and how creativity is influenced by dreams and how it's influenced philosophers all over the ages. I remember very kindly you were the first one to sign it for me. It says thank you for introducing this book to me. I read it copy next summer during my weeks of holidays. So I don't know if you have it, but I'm going to send one to you so you can able to read it.
And send me your postal address. I will send you.
I will.
Send me your postal address. I will send you my new books.
Okay,
the latest
perfect.
One is an encyclopedia of my writings.
Oh,
published in London.
Perfect. Well, Juhani, muchas gracias. Un abrazo.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. No, wait, Juhani, wait 2 seconds.
Okay.
2 seconds. He just connected literally right now. Bonch, casi te lo pierdes. Hello, Bonch, can you hear us?
Hi, Juhani. Hi.
Hello, Bonch. Hey.
Juhani.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Juhani. How are you? Healthy?
We have been talking 1.5 hours now.
Very good. That's all that matters. It's a pleasure to see you.
Very nice to see you.
How things are going in Helsinki?
Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
You are doing well as a country, is that right? You have just a few people with.
Yes. Finland has done very well. We have a government of young ladies, and they have been very wise.
We in Mexico, we have a huge problem with.
I see in the reports, daily reports.
Yes, it's a little bit unresponsible.
Yeah.
The people is not taking care in a very good way.
But your situation is nothing compared with the United States.
Yeah, nothing compares.
It's a real horror.
We don't know. We really don't know, because here the numbers are very simulated.
Yes.
In the United States, they made a lot of proofs, and they have more reality in their numbers. Here, everything is a lie.
Yeah.
The government is trying to make a makeup with the numbers. Yes. So we really don't know how big is our problem here in Mexico. And in Yucatan, we are having in these days a very important increase in the number of sick people.
Ooh, too bad.
How's your wife?
She's fine.
Please say hi.
Bonch, I see that you're leaving your beard. I have never seen you before with a beard.
I am trying to look like Juhani.
Juhani, yes.
My white how do you say with this in English?
The white bird?
White
No,
bird. Yeah. I want to look just like Juhani.
My next birthday will be 84th.
Wow, 80. You look like 65, Juhani. You look very, very good, in a good way.
So we were talking, Bunch, about he was telling me before you entered that he remembers very fondly the time that he visited Yucatan, that you gave him a very nice welcome around here. And I think that that's something that a lot of our guests that you have invited over the years have to say about Yucatan and about you.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And we remember you stay here, Juhani, with a lot of love and as a very good time, very nice time to have you here. And remember, we saw you in Venice?
Yes, yes, well, I do remember.
I have a very nice picture with you and Glenn. We are laughing. I'm going to send you.
Yes.
Do you have it? I'm going to show you. What did you talk about, me?
We were talking about actually when we were talking about the truth, the lack of truth that we have today with the governments and the lack of information that we have, and it resonates very well with what you're saying about all the misleading information about the coronavirus. We were talking about how the time has changed. Like at the same time, we are slowing down our lives, but at the same time, it's accelerating because of all the meetings that we have virtually, and how we have to look out not only for our bodies, but for our minds, that we don't get sick in these times that we're living. In ways that Juhani was telling us, the ways that we can help us shape the future to the new generations. And I wanted to ask you, Juhani, what do the world needs more now? Does he needs more architects or more writers?
Well, I can't answer that. I would say the world needs more wisdom. Wisdom.
The world needs more empathy.
Yes, empathy and wisdom.
Wisdom, yeah. Do you think, Juhani, we will be a better species? How say it? Species after this?
What was that?
Do you think humans will be a better species after this sickness?
I don't think so. Perhaps we might be better individuals, but I have come to the conclusion that human societies do not learn. Societies do not learn. Only individuals do.
And a lot of good individuals doesn't make a good society.
Yes, that's right too. Yes.
if we put together many good people, do you think a lot of good people, many good people, can make a good society?
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. I think a lot of people, I think many good people, but working together will make a good society.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we were also.
It's the same that happens with good architecture. A lot of good buildings never gonna make a good city. Isn't that right, Juhani?
That's right. That's right.
Remember the street where I take you, Izamal. Do you remember Izamal?
Yes, of
That
course.
yellow town?
Yes.
I remember what you told me. And I don't know if you told me or you just tell that by yourself, or for yourself. But you said modern architecture have never made a street like this.
Yes. Yes. But that is true.
I'm looking for the picture.
So when we see Izamal, when we see Izamal and the design, it's what is interesting is that it's built by many people and it's not concerned about perfection. It's not concerned about this this industrial alignment that we're seeing nowadays, and I think that's what it gives his. Oh, there's the picture. There you go. It's. Can you see it, Juhani? It's bunch.
Yes, I can.
Augusto.
Yes, I can.
And I remember what you told us, Augusto and me. You told us that you need to take care of Glenn. You need to be watching him all the time. Sorry, Min, I interrupt you.
No, don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it. No, and no, one of the aspects that we were discussing is the young architects are all the time looking for perfection, and they're looking for perfection in the wrong places. They're looking for perfection in the finishes of the building, and they don't see the perfection in a place like Izamal, that it's perfect by the way it is, by the way that it was built by several people over the years in a way to create like this community, not in a way to create fame or to create something that it's perfect by itself, but perfect as a part of the whole.
Let me tell where the problem is. It's the wrong attitude about what architecture is. This comes from seeing architecture as objects. Singular, isolated objects. Architecture is a mediating art. It mediates between things. And all the great old cities and villages, they are so great because no one had the ambition to stand out as a singular thing. They all, how would I say, mediate same attitudes towards life and society. I think this is for me, this has become an important viewpoint personally, that architecture is an art of mediation. It's not the end product, it mediates.
Okay.
And also I think, Juhani, that everybody is trying to be special.
Yeah.
Everybody are trying to be special.
Yeah.
And no one tries to be authentic. And maybe you can do the typical things, being authentic, and that will be special.
Yeah.
Be yourself.
Yeah.
So if everybody wants to be different and cap the attention of the street, we will be creating a very noisy.
That also the same applies to the obsession with newness. There is a Norwegian philosopher who published a book on it's entitled The Philosophy of Boredom. And one of his arguments is that the architect's desire for newness creates a situation where everything, nothing has other qualities than the newness, and this becomes a source for boredom. That is the boredom of contemporary cities, is this, you know, superficial idea of newness as a value.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
Juhani was, no, sorry.
No.
No, Juhani, was great talking with you. I appreciate a lot of your time, and I hope to see you the next time in person when your 109 turn to the world. You have to stop at Yucatan again. I'm sure Bunch is going to give you a nice trip again.
Nice to meet you, Ponch.
Nice to meet you, Juhani. It's a really enormous pleasure to see you well, in a well condition.
I must tell you, Hannele and I were invited by Balkrishna Doshi to his 90th birthday 2 years ago in Ahmedabad. And after 3 days when we left, I carelessly said to Doshi, I will come to your 100th birthday.
Really? That will be great.
Without thinking that I will be 90 myself then.
That will be great. I was invited to India 2 years ago, and they canceled the event because of the rains. And it was a disaster, but I really want that is one of my really important dreams, to go to India. I don't know India.
Yeah, you should. It's a fantastic.
Yes, I know. It's important to go there. Juhani, it's a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to see you.
Muchas gracias por invitarme. Thank you very much for inviting me.
2 segundos, Bunch, no te vayas a ir. Thank you, Juhani. Nice to see you again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much,
Bye-bye.
Juhani. Bye.
A ver, ahí está. Oye, Bunch, muchas gracias por tu tiempo. Casi no llegas, pero...
Salí corriendo de una junta y vine
corriendo. Era mi libro ya, era mi as bajo la manga para durar un segundo más. No, pero de verdad, agradezco mucho tu tiempo igual, y aprovechando para platicarte que obviamente a raíz de ti y a raíz de todo el esfuerzo que hiciste en la Universidad Marista a través de los años de invitar a gente tan maravillosa, creo que ha ayudado a formar a nuevas generaciones de arquitectos, y en particular a mí, que me diste la oportunidad de acompañarlos a los viajes, acompañarlos a Uxmal, a estar en las cenas, a aprender de que aprendes más de las personas al conocerlas y al entender cómo piensan que de sus obras. Creo que es algo súper valioso y es algo con lo que hemos estado intentando aplicar en los últimos meses para aportar valor durante esta pandemia. Creo que el labor que hiciste en la Marista y que sigues haciendo en la Marista es de sumamente importancia, y en todas las pláticas a las que hemos tenido la oportunidad, que nos han invitado, siempre recuerdan a Yucatán de una manera muy cálida a todos los invitados que han tenido la oportunidad de estar acá.
Sí, no, fue una época muy bonita, y estoy seguro que Jorge la va a continuar y la va a mejorar incluso, y solo que pasa esta porquería de bicho que nos está afectando tanto, ¿no? Pero sí, la verdad es que fueron experiencias padrísimas. Una de las cosas que siempre pensamos también es que a las personas que invitáramos, además de ser grandes arquitectos, tendrían que ser buenas personas también. Y por eso vino gente con mucha sensibilidad, con gente que realmente apreció Yucatán. Y bueno, y desde luego que seguir vendiendo esta hermosa tierra que tenemos. Yucatán creo que es una asignatura, así como conversamos ahorita de ir a la India, que es una cosa maravillosa. Creo que Yucatán es una asignatura que cualquier arquitecto de cualquier parte del mundo quisiera estar por acá, ¿no?
Claro.
Por el tema de nuestros antepasados, como también por las maravillas naturales y todas las... O sea, bueno, aquí fue el cataclismo más importante que ha vivido el planeta, ¿no? Así que bueno, muchas gracias por invitarme a mí. Buenísimo.
No, muchas gracias a ti por tener el tiempo. Te mando un abrazo enorme, Bunch.
Igualmente, que estén muy bien todos. Bueno, Levin, gracias. Bueno.
Bueno, pues les quiero agradecer a todos su tiempo. Les quiero agradecer que me hayan dedicado a Juhani un lunes a las 10 de la mañana. a todos los que están viendo por YouTube. Esto obviamente se va a quedar acá guardado para todos los que están trabajando. Les mando un abrazo. Estuve viendo sus preguntas durante toda la transmisión. Estuve tratando de incluirlos dentro del diálogo que estábamos teniendo. Y seguro que algunas se me fueron, pero estuve pendiente de todos. Vamos a seguir realizando estas pláticas, vamos a seguir conectándonos con todos para estar creando estos espacios de convivencia entre arquitectos por toda Latinoamérica y por todo el mundo. Nuevamente le agradezco enormemente a Juhani de su tiempo, y a ustedes igual, y al Bunch por estar por acá igual para pasar a saludarnos, que esperemos dentro de algunas semanas tener la oportunidad de hablar con él igual en uno de estos lives. Les mando un abrazo a todos, que tengan un excelente día y pues ahí nos vemos.